Hari. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajaka अष्टोत्तर सदस्य श्रीमद् ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय श्रीमते भक्ति विकास स्वामिनाथाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 19. King Yayati achieves liberation, text 17. So please repeat after me. Matra Swasra Duhitra Va Na Avivikta Asanaha Bhavet Balavan Indriyagramah Vidvangsam Api Karshati Matra Swasra Duhitra Va Navi Viktasano Bhavet Balavan Indriya Gramo Vidvangsam Api Karshati Matra Swasra Duhitra Va Navi Viktasano Bhavet Balavan Indriya Gramo Vidvangsam Api Karshati Matra Swasra Duhitra Va Navi Viktasano Bhavet Balavan Indriya Gramo Vidvangsam Api Karshati बलवान इंद्रिय ग्रामो विद्वांसम अपि कर्षति मात्रा स्वस्त्रा दुहित्रा वा नाविविक्ता सनो भवेत् बलवान इंद्रिय ग्रामो विद्वांसम अपि कर्षति। माताजी, मात्रा स्वस्त्रा दुहित्रा वा अविविक्ता सनो भवेत् बलवान इंद्रिय ग्रामो विद्वांसम अपि कर्षति। माताजी, मात्रा स्वस्त्रा दुहित्रा वा नाविविक्ता सनो भवेत् बलवान इंद्रिय ग्रामो विकर्षति। मात्रा with one's mother, swastra with one's sister, duhitra with one's own daughter, va either, na not, avivikta asanaha seated closely on one seat, bhavet one should be, balavan very strong, indriya gramaha the group of senses, vidvangsam the very learned and advanced person, api even, karshati agitates. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. Translation: one should not allow oneself to sit on the same seat even with one's own mother, sister or daughter, for the senses are so strong that even though one is very advanced in knowledge, he may be attracted by sex. Purport: learning the etiquette of how to deal with women does not free one from sexual attraction. As specifically mentioned herewith, such attraction is possible even with one's mother, sister, or daughter. Generally, of course, one is not sexually attracted to his mother, sister, or daughter. But if one allows himself to sit very close to such a woman, one may be attracted. This is a psychological fact. It may be said that one is liable to be attracted if he is not very advanced in civilized life. However, as specifically mentioned here, vidvamsam api karshati, even if one is highly advanced, materially or spiritually, he may be attracted by lusty desires. The object of attraction may even be one's mother, sister, or daughter. Therefore, one should be extremely careful in dealings with women. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was most strict in such dealings, especially after he accepted the sannyasa order. Indeed, no woman could come near him to offer him respect. Again, one is warned here with that one should be extremely careful in dealings with women. A brahmachari is forbidden even to see the wife of a spiritual master if she happens to be young. The wife of the spiritual master may sometimes take some service from the disciple of her husband, as she would from a son. But if the wife of the spiritual master is young, a brahmachari is forbidden to render service to her. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Matra swastra duhitra va navivikta sano bhavet bhalavan indriya gramo vidvangsam apikarshati. One should not allow oneself to sit on the same seat even with one's own mother, sister or daughter, for the senses are so strong that even though one is very advanced in knowledge, he may be attracted by sex. So we are continuing to hear from the Srimad Bhagavatam with this pastime of Ayati, who is on the pathway to liberation. And here there is so much of realizations and so many points and culture and etiquette to learn from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Srimad Bhagavatam, it primarily deals with, if you see the main subject matter of the Srimad Bhagavatam is about Krishna's, the personality of Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, his various incarnations, and the loving dealings that he has with his devotees, and the devotees reciprocate with the Lord. But along with that, there is a whole package which comes to get to that status of developing pure love for Krishna. There are so many things which we need to follow, which we need to learn and imbibe in our life to develop that pure love for God. So here is one instruction in this set of series of verses where we are learning about the dealings of the women with the men and the men with women. All the dealings are given here. Specifically here, a very profound instruction is given, which may be shocking for even some of the religionists or some of the people who, as Prabhupada points out in the purport, who are civilized and cultured. So here it is. It's very specifically mentioned here that one should not allow oneself to sit on the same seat even with one's own mother, sister or daughter. Yeah, nobody will imagine. It's not, as Prabhupada is pointing out, it's not that someone is going to be any normal person who is from a cultured background. There is no question of a thought like that. But still, the scriptures are giving a warning. It is dangerous if someone takes part in such an activity of sitting very close with a mother, sister, or daughter because of the venomous senses. The senses are very strong. It can take us on the wrong path. So the warning is very clearly given. And we also see here, you may say that, okay, maybe it could happen to someone who is, maybe it may happen to someone who is a normal person, maybe someone who is learned, who knows the culture, who has heard it many times, who knows about the nitty-gritties of the dealings between men and women. Maybe it is not applicable for that, but the verse says, even vidvamsam, even a learned person who knows the scripture, who is aware of the dealings between men and women, still one has to be very careful. That is a warning given here. And it's very interesting. Srila Prabhupada begins the purport with this sentence. I was just thinking about it a lot. Learning the etiquette of how to deal with women does not free one from sexual attraction. You may know about it. You might have heard about it. But just that alone is not, there is no guarantee that now you are free from that attraction. So of course, we need to learn about it. The modern culture is so bad that they have no clue about it. There is a free mingling, so-called free thinking, free mingling. That's the predominant culture now. But this is something basic that we learn from the Vedic culture. We read Ramayana, Mahabharata. The very first thing we learn all this, how we deal with women, how we deal with parents, how we deal with sister, all this etiquette that we learn. But this is a very interesting point that simply learning alone is not sufficient. One should be thoughtful about it, one should deliberate on it, and one should also apply those teachings in one's life. This is so important. So there maybe you can see several scholars are there. They can give a big analysis of this whole statement. They can quote from various scriptures, they can quote from Puranas, give various quotes. But what are they doing in their life? What are we doing? How much are we following? Unless we follow, um, just hearing about it will not be sufficient. Otherwise, we will be like armchair speculators. Srila Prabhupada points out them to be armchair speculators. Armchair speculators are those, they just sit on the chair. They just, sometimes they have the this latest chairs where you can just move around left, right, and then, you can just make some different statements, but nothing gets into your heart unless you take it and then think about it and then see the lives of those personalities, how they have dealt with the opposite sex, how they have set an example in their life. So when we just, as Prabhupada speaks about learning the etiquette, we can see that there are great personalities who have gone astray from the path of pure devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada, when he gives immediately in the Bhagavatam, he points out, he gives an example of Brahma, how Brahma got carried away by his own daughter. The Bhagavatam explains that. Yeah. Vacham duhitaram tanvim swayambhur haratim manaha akamam chakame kshattaha sakama itina shrutam. So here, Maitreya is advising to Vidura. He's saying that it is little hesitatingly he speaks this. He wants to tell this information, although it may be a kind of a shock, but by pointing out this, he shows that how dangerous it is in this material world, how one should be very careful. He says, "Oh Vidura, Brahma had a daughter named Vak who was born from his body. Swayambhur harating manaha." And what happened? Because he got attracted to her, he says that he was inclined. Sakama itina shrutam. He wanted to have sexual relationship with her. Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he gives a warning. He says, Maitreya hesitated to state this anomaly on the part of Brahma, who was sexually inclined to his own daughter. But still he mentioned it because sometimes it so happens. And the living example is Brahma himself, although he is the primeval living being and the most learned within the whole universe. If Brahma could be a victim of the sexual urge, then what to speak of others who are prone to so many mundane frailties? So this is a warning. Even Brahma, he could be attracted. So we should not take it very light. I have 20 years, 25 years, I'm in the movement. I know what it is. I know everything. Do not take it lightly. So that's why Srila Prabhupada is giving this warning. And immediately there could be a question that is arised. How is that Brahma who heard the Chatushloki Bhagavatam, is a pure devotee, Lord gave the assurance that, you hear this, rest assured you'll be protected. Immediately Srila Prabhupada clarifies that in the purport. He says that from this immediately we can understand it is not that Brahma who heard the Chatushloki Bhagavatam, who was given the protection by the Supreme Lord. It's someone else. Just this is a side point to clarify. And further in the purport, Srila Prabhupada points out, one should, however, take serious note of the incident. The human being is a social animal, and his unrestricted mixing with the fair sex leads to downfall. Such a social freedom of man and woman, especially among the younger section, is certainly a great stumbling block on the path of spiritual progress. Okay, so Brahma was one example. And then when we speak of this Vidwan, we can think of another example from the Bhagavatam. Immediately we can think of Kashyapa Muni. Kashyapa was also well learned. He was scripturally well versed. So, but at the moment of weakness, that particular moment when Diti was speaking so many charming words, and then she was persuading Kashyapa. Kashyapa, he could have stood, but he became weak. That also Srila Prabhupada points out in his commentaries. He fell victim to those beautiful words. So that also here, Shukadeva Goswami is pointing out, Evam striya jadi bhuto vidwan api manonjaya. It's very clearly mentioned. He was a vidwan, but he fell victim. Bhadam ityaha vivasho nattat chitram hi yoshiti. Although Kashyapa Muni was a learned scholar, he was captivated by Diti's artificial behavior, which brought him under her control. Therefore, he assured his wife that he would fulfill her desires. Such a promise by husband is not all astonishing. So one may be very well learned, he may give different talks, may give so much advice, but then if he is not firm, if he is not very much following the principles, one may become a victim very soon. So that's why it's so important, we often, we from Bhagavatam, what do we do when this kind of shlokas, when we get this kind of shlokas or this kind of, some kind of tough sections when we deal, I think it's for our benefit it is being spoken. So we should not skip these sections. Oh, no, let's not discuss this is too much. No, let's skip it. No, we have to discuss. We have to discuss. So we discuss, then we are, at least theoretically we are warned. At least we know, oh, in this situation we should deal like this. Then it's a question of prayer. We deal in our life with a prayerful attitude. We chant, we surrender, we follow the instructions of the spiritual master and our previous acharyas. And in that way we seek help. This is amazing. His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami, he was, he's editing the books, okay. So he was doing the third canto Bhagavatam editing. And even before the book was published, he read the section where Kapila is giving those advice. So the women, they attract the mind of men by service. So they engage in service, and if the men accept service from women, they get bewildered. So Maharaj mentions when he was a brahmachari, so he was doing editing of the books and all those things. So one Mataji was, every day she used to regularly come and then give fruits. And Maharaj read this in this particular section of the Bhagavatam. So he was very careful. He said that, so why I should get these fruits? I'll distribute to everyone. So whatever fruits he got, he distributed to all the devotees. So he says that, I read that section of Prabhupada, Prabhupada's commentary on that. So anyway, the point is that the knowledge that we get from scriptures, it's not just for some time pass. And simply we appreciate, oh, very nice, oh, amazing point, very good. What are we doing with that? What are you going to do with that? Do something with that. Hear it and apply it in your life. So you may know hundreds of shlokas, right? You may know hundreds of shlokas. You may know the translations. Even if you can apply one line of it, your life will become perfect. Try to apply that. That's why we are here. That's why we have the Bhagavatam class. That's why we tried. It's not some kind of a ritual. We just say, read Prabhupada's books, hear Prabhupada's lecture. That in itself is a purification, for sure, no doubt about it. And then, as the scripture says, we hear it, we contemplate it, and then we try to apply those teachings. So that's very much required. And here, we may sometimes wonder, what is it why we are so much attracted by the opposite sex. And the Bhagavatam gives an answer for that. Bhagavatam explains why it is like that. Striyam chakre swadehardam yaya pungsam matir hrita. In the 6th canto, it is being explained it is explained how Brahma, seeing the whole world, it is explained that vilokayai kanta bhutani, seeing ekanta bhutani. Ekanta bhutani is that all the jivas, they were very detached. All the men, when Brahma created the men, they were all very detached. They were very peaceful, detached. So here it is explained that bhutan yado prajapatihi. So now Brahma, he thought that, he has a job to do. There should be procreation that is happening. The population should increase. So he thought that the only way to do is that to increase population, he then created women from the better half of man's body. For women's behavior carries away a man's mind. So that's the whole background of it. So Srila Prabhupada points out that, so in that particular verse, Prabhupada is quoting that when a man remains in a solitary place with a woman, his sexual desires undoubtedly increase. Therefore, the words ekanta bhutani, which are used here, indicate that to avoid sexual desires, one should avoid the company of women as far as possible. Sexual desire is so powerful that one is saturated with it if he stays in a solitary place with any woman, even his mother, sister, or daughter. So that's one very interesting thing. One is that we always seek the association of devotees. We always do everything in the association of devotees, which is very good. When there is an advice of Sripad Madhvacharya, never go alone. We are not some big Goswamis. We are all sadhakas. We are all trying to purify our existence by the process of devotional service. Now, I don't remember who it was. There was an article. The title of the article is Are We For Real? Maybe it's an upcoming book or something. And the Are We For Real, in that, there was a point that is written, how we will be when we are alone, how we will be. That means how we will respond. Now we are in the association of devotees, and we follow everything nicely. we chant, we dance. Now we are alone. We are in a situation where we are alone. We don't want to get into such a situation. But if we are alone, what is our mind speaking to us? What are the thoughts coming in our mind? So that is at that time we know where we are standing, how we are, what is the progress we have made. We don't have to ask anybody. So that's something to think about. So we need to be very careful how we are dealing with that. And then there is again another warning. Srila Prabhupada speaks these three examples in one lecture. He speaks about Brahma, he speaks about Kashyapa, he speaks about Lord Shiva as well. So if we see the Mohini Murti, that pastime, we all know what happened to Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva became completely captivated by Mohini Murti. And then Mohini Murti, she took her to the hermitage of all the sages. Why did he take her? So Prabhupada gives a very nice hint in the purport. Just one instruction is to show that even Lord Shiva, he is such a great personality. He is such a very elevated personality. Even he is not spared when it comes to the beautiful attraction of the opposite sex. So don't take it very light that, I have conquered my senses, I am now free from Maya. This is utter illusion if you think like that. So Prabhupada, I'll just point out right from the purport, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out, he's quoting Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks that Mohini Murti dragged Lord Shiva to so many places, especially to where the great sages lived, to instruct the sages that their Lord Shiva had become mad for a beautiful woman. That although they were all great sages and saintly persons, they should not think themselves free, but should remain extremely cautious about beautiful women. So no one should think himself liberated in the presence of beautiful women. So Srila Prabhupada also, while giving all these three examples, he also quoted in one lecture about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Supreme Personality of Godhead. What to speak of he being attracted by someone. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, my mind gets attracted even if I see a wooden doll, he says. So this is what it is. How do we understand this? This is simply to point out that we should not take the statements of the scripture lightly. It's not that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is attracted by a doll, but he sets the example that one can be captivated. Because it's not that in this lifetime we are contaminated. So many lifetimes these vasanas are being carried out. So we are carrying these vasanas from so many lifetimes. So we do not know when, how the bubble can pop up. The bubble of sexual desire, when it will pop up, we do not know. So as it is explained, unless one becomes a pure devotee, one should never risk, one should never take the statements of the scriptures lightly. Even when one becomes a pure devotee, and then we can see the examples of great personalities like Srila Prabhupada himself, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, great the Babajis of Vrindavan, Jagannath Das Babaji or Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, although they are completely above the modes, but we could never see that they intermingle with the opposite sex in a free way. We could see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, such an elevated personality. When he had one of the disciples' wife, who was almost like a granddaughter, she wanted to express something to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur alone. He said that, you want to talk to me? All my disciples are there, you can talk to me. That is nothing private that we will have any discussion. She's like granddaughter. So these are all the etiquettes that we learn, that we see from great personalities, how they deal in various situations. And there are also, on the other side, there are some exceptions also. And we should not take those exceptions and blindly think ourselves like great, as like Namacharya Hari Dasa Thakur, or we should not think ourselves to be Narada Muni and try to imitate. Srila Prabhupada, in one place, he makes the point that Goswami is one who, in spite of the object of agitation, there are objects of agitation, in spite of that he is not agitated. He is a Goswami. But we should also be very realistic, know what is our position, and then don't try to artificially jump into such scenarios. So Prabhupada gives the example of Namacharya Hari Dasa Thakur. When the prostitute was sent to allure Namacharya Hari Dasa Thakur, what was his response? He could have just left that place, right? He could have just left that place. But he thought that here is one innocent soul who has tried to come to captivate me, whatever. But he thought that, let me give my association and then try to save this innocent soul. His idea was, giving my association means, let me chant the holy names of Krishna. By hearing the holy names of Krishna, she will be purified. So these are some exceptional cases. So we can see that also. And great personalities could do that. So we should know where we are, and we should be very much aware of our situation, and we should deal there should be minimal dealings with the opposite sex. That should be the attitude of specifically those who are in the ashram of brahmachari, vanaprastha. Vanaprastha also has some dealings with women, specifically brahmacharis and sannyasis. No question of unnecessary talks, some prajalpas, trying to impress someone, not required. So there might be a situation where there may be a need for service, and for that service there is a dealing, and then that's all. Otherwise there is no need to unnecessarily deal with the opposite sex. This is the standard that is set by all the acharyas. And also, of course, we saw the example of Narada Muni, how he dealt in various situations. Sometimes devotees or some newcomers, they ask this question: how is that Narada Muni took Kayadu to our ashram? Where it is Narada Muni, he is Bhakti Shakti personified. He can do that. You don't try to do such things. So that's an important point to be understood. So Srila Prabhupada, again in another lecture, he points out that, this is the training that is given to the devotees or those who are practicing in the Vedic life. Right from young age, this training is given, so that there is separation of the sexes. Right from young age, then in various cultures it is being followed. In another conversation, Prabhupada speaks about the glory of the Vedic culture, how this Vedic culture is so glorious, and the remnants of Vedic culture we can see at various places. So Srila Prabhupada says that in the Vedic culture, immediately we address the opposite sex as Mataji. Sometimes in the modern days, people are upset when you call. I remember, this is maybe some 15 years back, in the opposite house where we were staying. So there was one servant maid who was coming and then doing household activities. So the boy was calling her mother. And this servant maid was pointing out to tell your son not to call me mother, because she was feeling that I am very young. Why she's moving my age so much? So this is the conception. Immediately we can see all these things are influence of the media, the TV. That was the time when the cable TV was very prominent in Tamil Nadu. This 10, 15 years back. Previously there was only one channel. There was Doordarshan. We had some 4 or 5 hours program. That's all. And in many houses they had black and white TV. And even someone having TV in the house itself was rare. And even they used to congregate in someone's house, and gradually, as we culturally advanced and scientifically advanced, then we got TV in everyone's house, and then there was color TV, and then what not now? They have big screens, and they don't go to theater. Theater is in the house. And then what is the result of it? This is the result of it. If intermingling of opposite sex, everyone is equal, everything is no problem. Why we should just separate the opposite sex like this, everyone together? But what's the problem now? So many problems are happening. Why there is a need for a CCTV? Now CCTV, all the schools, we need to have CCTV. Without CCTV, probably it will be a rule everywhere to have CCTV. That we can't trust anyone. That's the effect of the modern day culture. What is the advancement of the modern culture? The modern culture's advancement is that no more trust on anyone. We do not know there is a saying in Tamil that we do not know the snake is in which anthill, something like that. Where it is, we do not know. Similarly, we do not know. One may be a very close friend, but we don't know. He may run away with your money, or he may run away with your wife. Anything can happen. This is the modern day culture. It's a very pitiable culture. That's what is the advancement has made. So, Srila Prabhupada, in one of the Bhagavatam classes, he points out, so we should be very careful in our society. Okay, I'll just point out this. Another interesting thing he says in the lecture. He says, therefore, it is a system in Vedic culture. It doesn't matter whether someone is younger or older. They should be treated as mother. Therefore, it is a system in the Vedic culture. As soon as one sees another woman, he addresses her, mother, Mataji, immediately mother. That makes the relationship. The woman treats the unknown man as son, and the unknown man treats the unknown woman as mother. This is Vedic civilization. We should be very careful. In our society, you're all god brothers, god sisters. Or those who are married, they are like mothers. So you should be very careful. Then you will remain dhira, sober. That is Brahminical qualification, Brahminical culture. Not that because I have got facilities to intermingle with nice girls, so I shall take advantage and exploit them. Or the girl should take. No. Therefore, our restriction, no illicit sex. This is a lecture, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, Text 13, September 18, 1972, Los Angeles. That's where Srila Prabhupada spoke this. And Srila Prabhupada also, he points out about the deficiency of the leaders. This is another interesting thing, no? Like this, unless the leaders are setting examples in the modern day culture, that's what all the youngsters, everybody, they see everywhere, they see billboards, they see advertisements, smartphones and everything, everywhere. This free intermingling is a common thing. So in the current day scenario for the youngsters, they can't even perceive that there is a concept existing like this, that one should not sit closely with woman's sister women's sister or one's mother. So that will be gradually, it will be gone unless we preach very vigorously. We very much preach from Ramayana, Mahabharata, Gita, Bhagavatam. People will gradually lose this culture, and it will create a great havoc. So Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that, I will not mention the name, in one of the conversation, he's pointing out there was a so-called leader in India. He points out that he didn't set a good example. In fact, he points out with this, quoting this verse, and he's pointing out that he had his relationship with his sister and his daughter was not really good. So, and he said he's in a very respectable position, and what kind of a example he can set for the common people to follow. Yad yad acharati sreshtas taddad eve taro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. So it's so important that the leaders should set good example, because whatever example that the leaders said, the common men will follow. So see how important it is for us to learn this culture, practice it in our lives, so that we not only save our own lives, save our own neighbors, but also the younger generation which is coming up. They are looking at us. From us, they learn everything. So it's so important for us to discriminate properly. So Prabhupada is pointing out, the leaders are speaking while doing that. So he says that the leaders, they don't follow anything and they speak big, big words, but what is the use? No discrimination, just like a hog, no discrimination. It's on a morning walk. So this is the point, that Prabhupada points out that that's why in the Vedic culture there was such a strict rules and regulations were followed, and the marriage that happened in an early age. And Prabhupada immediately gives an example of how Srila Prabhupada married Burijan Prabhu and Jagatarini Mataji. So he gives that example, and he says that, and gives an example that when I was young, Dr. Patel, there was a morning walk with Dr. Patel. So, and Dr. Patel also said that when I got married, I didn't even see my wife. We cannot even imagine these days that such kind of marriages. But that was practiced even some 20, 30 years back. Even now in some places, in villages and other places, such culture was there, and still such marriages, it flourished. It's going good. So Dr. Patel, he gave an example that, and during my marriage, I never saw my wife, and then we lived together for so many years. Of course, we did fight, he says. There are so many fights. And Srila Prabhupada, when he shares his example, he said that, yes, I also never saw my wife. My father arranged, and although I didn't like my wife, but we stayed together. So that was the injunction that was given, and we stood. See, that is the whole point, the principle of dharma. So much it is instilled in the lives of the people in the early days. Dharma, life is meant for dharma. Everything should be on the basis of dharma. That is what we should educate our children also. This is dharma, you have to stick to it. But I don't like it, I don't want it. But this is dharma. Because dharma is always it's going to protect us. So dharma means, we are not speaking some vague thing here. We are speaking, dharma means instructions given by the Supreme Lord. That the Lord has spoken in Bhagavad Gita. That the Lord has spoken in Bhagavatam. Whatever profound instructions He has given, we should follow it. Prabhuji, but I don't like it. You don't like it, but it is for your benefit. At the beginning, it may appear like poison, but at the end, it will turn out to be a nectar. This is what Krishna is saying. So we do not know what is good for us, but Krishna knows, our acharyas knows, our well-wishers they know, our guardian they know. They are all devotees. They know what should be done, what should not be done. So we should at least theoretically accept and follow the principles. So Prabhupada points out how important this chastity is. So therefore, chastity is very, very important thing for producing good population, nice population. So unless the population is good, if the population becomes hippies, then how there can be any peace and prosperity? Therefore, to produce children, there is samskara. First samskara is Garbhadhana samskara. This is called Kula Dharma. Garbhadhana samskara means when, especially the high caste Brahmana, Kshatriya especially. So Prabhupada points out that. So these samskaras are so important. Then good children, the progeny will be very good. And in turn, they will practice, they will again produce good progeny. In that, the Vedic culture will spread. Krishna conscious culture will spread. Then we can see sanity in the society. Then we can see, although the current Kali Yuga is, everything is topsy-turvy. There's a great havoc that is happening in the society due to the atheists, so-called sense gratifiers. So many problems are being created. But if this culture is spread, then definitely the society will become more sane. And then but the modern politicians and so-called industrialists, they don't allow this. But just we heard on Sunday, Sri Ram Charnarandaprabhu made an interesting point that why they will not allow us to hear this. Why these kind of statements, they will outright reject it and say that, oh, these are all heavy statements. Don't hear Manu Samhita. Don't hear about the restrictions about women. All those things we should not hear. Why? Because these modern day politicians and industrialists and so-called leaders, they want to promote their products. They want to promote their philosophy by which they can continue to dominate innocent people. So they come up with various products, various gadgets, and then they want to sell that. If you hear these kind of advice, then obviously you will try to reduce sense gratification. When you reduce sense gratification, why you need a smartphone, why you need the latest gadgets? You can lead life in a simple way. You don't need posh car. You don't need all different kinds of electronic gadgets. You can lead a simple life. Then what happens? They have to close the industries. They have to close the factories. Then how can I exploit you? So this is the problem. So the modern, and you can also see sports, various different kinds of sports. Most of it are all rubbish. Or we could say that 99.9% of it is rubbish. There is no need for all these kinds of so-called sports. What is the need for all these, women's championships, which if we say they will immediately brand us as fundamentalists and then fanatics. It's simply, as Prabhupada points out in one of the purports, simply they want to exploit the bodies of women. All the so-called big fellows, they come and then sit and watch the games. Simply they want to exploit the opposite sex. So Prabhupada points out in one of the purport. So these are all unnecessary things. And these are, who is doing this? The so-called leaders who want to exploit. They want to promote their games, and they so many things. Tennis racket, balls. How much amount of money is invested in this? How much amount of promotion is done to this? So if we just do an analysis of every small thing, we can see that the society is being dominated by demons. So this is the point. And it will be very interesting. Srila Prabhupada points out, as Srila Prabhupada is traveling to various places, and Srila Prabhupada also knows. So Prabhupada points out that even in so many different cultures, they were very conservative. Prabhupada points out that the Hindus, even the Chinese culture also, there was this restriction was there before. He was pointing out in one of their conversations. And also Prabhupada points out that how the women will not come so freely in front of men. That was the Vedic culture. They used to cover their head. They used to keep themselves. As Srila Prabhupada points out in the first canto purport, that what was the great protection for the women? The shyness. That was a wall. That was protecting them always. And men also, they were at distance. So that protection was there. So Prabhupada, in one of the conversations, he points out, the Japanese say about 40 years ago, one of my friends, he had a Japanese tenant in Calcutta, not tenant. He was working with the distribution at a big office. So he was assistant cashier. So during Christmas, he gave some presentation and went to his boss's house. So the servant came to receive the presentation. And when he asked about the lady, his wife, the servant replied that in the absence of her husband, she does not see anybody. That I have seen, not that she came to receive. Oh, mister, you have come to Mr. such and such house. All right. No, it was done by the servant. And when he asked about the missus, the servant said that in the absence of the master, she does not see anyone. See, this was a glorious Vedic culture. And also Prabhupada, in another place, he points out that how his own mother, he recollects about his mother, when it may be only the next door or two houses after that. Only that much distance she has to go. And how she will go, see, those days there was palanquins, there were 4 men. So it's not that women can be seen very easily. They'll be covered, they'll be very protected. And that shows, that's how they treated it. They took it very seriously, the statements in the scriptures. And we can see as a result of that, the society was more peaceful, they were more happy. And we can see the more it has become free and loose, how much happy we are. There is so much complication that is happening. So that is the point. At another point, we can remind ourselves. And in another conversation, Prabhupada is making that, so okay, maybe somebody may think, okay, no, let me attain perfection, 30 years, 40 years, I've become a great acharya. Now maybe can I can give advice. We gave the example of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Srila Prabhupada points out here in one of the lecture, he says, strictly forbidden that fish will kill you. So Prabhupada is pointing at fish talking privately, something very important discussion. Prabhupada is pointing out that's not good. Therefore, it is forbidden that don't talk in solitary place with women. Even she happens to be your daughter, your mother and your sister. Generally, one is not agitated in sex with mother, with sister, with daughter. But it is forbidden up to death. This is what Prabhupada is saying. Not that, you can, now you have become, even till the last moment, last breath, you have to be very, you have to set example. Even you might have transcended, you are a liberated soul, but you have to set example. Even Brahma became agitated by seeing his daughter. This is what Srila Prabhupada is pointing out. Yeah, Prabhupada also, in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, he gives again a very specific instruction. He points out, Shushilo mitabhuk dakshaha shraddadhano jitendriyaha yavad artam vyavaharet strishu stri nirjiteshu cha. So Prabhupada points out that apart from keeping distance with the woman, how the brahmachari should deal. A brahmachari should be quite well behaved and gentle and should not eat or collect more than necessary. He must always be active and expert, fully believing in the instructions of the spiritual master and the Shastra. Fully controlling his senses, he should associate only as much as necessary with women or those controlled by women. Yeah, so these are the injunctions that are there in the scriptures like this. There are more quotes and more other explanations, but we have to understand the principle that as the entire chapter is speaking, what is the entire chapter is speaking about? Restriction between men and women. This is good for our progress. So we are, at the same time, we cannot go to another extreme also, that if we become something like women haters and then speak too much on the other side, we will go to other extreme and we will miserably fall down as well. So we should know also how to treat them. We should treat them as mothers very respectfully. And Srila Prabhupada in one of the lectures he says, some of the people criticize me because traditionally in India there is no question of women staying in the ashram. That's not possible. But Srila Prabhupada had to introduce it in the West because that was the culture was very predominant, that there was a free mingling between men and women, and Prabhupada accommodated, and he said that they were doing tremendous service. He did accommodate, but Prabhupada did train on all this culture also after that, on the restrictions. But at the same time, one should be very respectful. One should not develop hatred towards women. And we have seen those who develop too much hatred and then they say, what is this? You be too much, they are like demons. And if you start seeing them like that, then you go to another extreme, you also fall down. That's another extreme also. So we should know how to deal with them very respectfully, and there is no unnecessary dealings. And we should not take these statements lightly from the scriptures. And one other thing that is being also pointed out in this purport, that specifically for anybody, there is no need to glance at women unnecessarily. Or unnecessarily, there is no need at all. This is a training that one get in the young age in the Vedic culture. That's an amazing training that they have been got. We also see in Ramayana that when, I don't remember that verse, a very nice verse, where Lakshman, when he says that I have never seen, always he has seen only the lotus feet of Sita. And he has not seen the face of Sita. Like that, there is a verse which explains. So the point is that there is no need to do glancing. The more if you start glancing at women, from there everything begins. It takes us to the fall down. So this is an important training that you get, and we see. So as sometimes devotees say, when Vishnu glances, it ends up in creation. When we start glancing, it ends up in destruction. So we need to be very careful what we are doing. Well, it's not so easy. It's a natural, spontaneous attraction because of our conditioned nature. It happens, but that's why the training is there. That's why we train. We just bring, as Krishna says in the Gita, yato nischalati manas chanchalam astiram tatas tato niyamya itat Atmavanye Vasham Nayet. It says that bring the mind, when the mind goes away and it tries to enjoy the sense objects, immediately you preach and bring the mind back to the senses. Bring it back to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So that's one thing. And we may speak about so many things. It's for our purification. And we can also see how nobody is free. And Prabhupada also points out in one purport that hardly in the three worlds, nobody has got the power to resist the attraction of the opposite sex. Prabhupada in elsewhere he speaks about that. So these are all the warnings that is given. Now, this is on one side. What is it that is required from our side? From our side, what is anything, something special? We should go to a psychologist or go to a psychotherapist or nothing we have to do. All we have to do is we have a very, very powerful process. Although there's, on the other hand, the influence of Maya is very powerful, but Krishna's holy name, Krishna's he gives support to his devotees. He protects his devotees. We should have faith in this. So this comes through the mercy of the devotees. So we need mercy. This is the whole point. We should beg for mercy from the Supreme Lord. Then we can be able to overcome these allurements. So it reminds me of one very nice incident. Sripad Ramanujacharya, once he went to take, he was bathing in the Kaveri and he was coming back. And then he saw there was one wrestler. What was his name? I think Dhanurdas. His name is Dhanurdas. And he was attracted by the beauty of another lady. Her name is Hemamba, if I'm not wrong. He was very much attracted by her. And then, can you just imagine the situation? They were all big procession, Ramanujacharya with all his disciples and so many devotees coming on the opposite side. But he saw this wrestler, he was having an umbrella. And then he is carrying the umbrella so that she doesn't get the hot sun on her. And then he was just gazing at her beautiful eyes. He's not looking anywhere, he's just walking like that. And then Ramanujacharya saw this person, and then he was inquiring from his disciples, what's going on there? Who is he? Then they said that he's such and such, and so he said that please ask him to come and meet me. So he called this Dhanurdas and he said that, what is it that you're so attracted? No, I cannot see anything more attractive than the beautiful eyes of this lady. So I cannot give up this. She's so attractive. So Ramanujacharya said, okay, you come today evening. I will show you something even more attractive than this. If I show you something, will you show? Will you come and take shelter? So when he was asking like that, so he said that, how can there be something more attractive than what I'm seeing with her? So anyway, he came. So Ramanujacharya took him to take darshan of Lord Ranganath. So he took him all the way. He took him inside the Garbhagriha. He gave the darshan. He gave the vision. He prayed to Lord Ranganath. Lord Ranganath, please, give mercy to his devotee. And you show your beautiful form. It's not that we also come and stand in front of the deities and then this is the process. We look at the lotus feet and we look at the beautiful form of the Lord. That is the process. But it was very special that Ramanujacharya, he got the mercy of Ramanujacharya, and then he was completely captivated by the beautiful form of Lord Ranganath. And then what happened, the beauty of this lady became like tucham. It became very insignificant. Then the transformation happened in his life. He and this lady, so they got married, and then both of them, they became great devotees of the Lord, and they surrendered, and then they became pure devotees. They were engaged in preaching and like that. So the point that I just wanted to make here is that we need the mercy of the devotees. So Srila Prabhupada, who knows about all this? Even some of us are born in India, some of us are from a high cultural background. We are all corrupted because of so much of watching TV, reading newspapers, and we almost lost cultural values. It was because by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we could really appreciate the Vedic culture. We could really look at women with the proper perspective. We could really appreciate the power of devotional service, how we will be benefited, and how we can purify our existence. This is the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada and his pure followers, they are showering their mercy. And as every day morning we sing, Chakkudan Dilojai, Janme Janme Prabhu say. So he is the one who has given the transcendental eyes. And then by that transcendental eyes, when we Shastra Chakshu, Acharya Chakshu, by the mercy of see through the Acharyas, then we will be able to overcome all these deficiencies, which is really dragging us down and keeping us very much tied in this material world. So that's the whole point. So here we learn from this Ayati's instruction how we have to be very careful and not take these instructions very lightly. One other last thing I'll just read and conclude. It's already time is up. He says, I think this is from okay, there's another thing which also very practical for practical purposes. It's a good instruction. It says, never trust the mind. The mind will tell us, I can speak to this woman, I won't get agitated, she's only a child, or she's much older than me, so no problem, or she's a chaste wife of so-and-so, or anyway, I know the philosophy. I'm not going to speak of her for long. It's important, and I'm doing it. I'm not going to fall down. So, but then don't take it so lightly. But Shastra states that what to speak of lusty rascals brought up in the modern sex-centered so-called civilization, even learned scholars of the Vedic age were totally forbidden from sitting close to their mother, sister, or daughter. So this is the great standard that we learn, and then we imbibe, we practice, and when we practice like this, we will be respected, not only among the sadhus, even the opposite sex, they will also respect when somebody deals like this. So that's what we learn. Okay, thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions or comments? Already I'm late. Do you have any questions, comments, any realizations? Srila Prabhupada is really amazing how it was such a difficult thing to bring this culture and to not so easy in the West, but he did it. He never compromised. He went to the West. So many other so-called sadhus and others, there was intermingling. Nobody spoke so straight, so clear, presented these Vedic truths. They never compromised. And when he thought that it's not going to happen, and Prabhupada did it, and we can see so many devotees who were even following these principles and giving this knowledge. So this is really amazing. And we are so inspired by seeing specifically you and your wife, and when you came here, spreading, going out, speaking this Vedic culture, asking devotees to chant Hare Krishna. This is a revolution, actually. This is a great revolution. It's all Srila Prabhupada's mercy. No doubt about that. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.